can education create, be revolutionised for the betterment of society?
How can we educate our own children to think decisively?
Because I think, well, the problem could be addressed like children these days, their ambition is to be a sort of celebrity on Big Brother rather than, being a scientist or a doctor, or a philosopher. It's kind of, the ambition is lies in something completely pointless, and it's not going to benefit society. Well, I don't know how you could sort of tackle that issue. It's quite an interesting topic for discussion.
Yeah. Like what we're in terms of religion, I think in first school, especially in a little village school I went to, actually at the second school I went to was almost actually completely taught religion, taught it as fact. It's just because there's only actually 2 teachers in the whole school, 12 pupils, and those 2 teachers happened to be husband and wife, and they were like devout Christians, and I wouldn't say devout, they're very kind of old-fashioned English Christians, but they taught it as fact. And they said, or even before lunch, we even had a little short rhyme. Was it sun, water, earth, and air have walked by God's care, the food that we share, blessings on our meal.
We always used to sing hymns and stuff at first school. It's kind of, it does seem to be, in this country, because in America they've got the constitutional separation of church and state, which means that the schools can't promote any religion over another, which is a good thing. But in this country, there's no sort of law saying you can't sing hymns in assembly and stuff. Which is it's kind of, well, taking the general rule that children believe what they're told by adults, you shouldn't be teaching them things that may not be true as truth from an early age, because they'll just accept it. You just can't. That's the sort of going back to the child abuse thing. That is child abuse to tell you. It's like the doctrine of hell. You wouldn't tell your child, if you're naughty, I'm going to build a big fire in the garden and I'm going to chuck you in it alive. But that's essentially, worse than that, you're teaching them that if they're naughty, when they die they're going to burn for an infinite amount of time. How is that not going to ruin the child's psychology and their sort of perception on the world? It's not morally right to teach that to children. No matter how much you believe it yourself, you just can't put that fear into a child's head. It's not. It is a psychological abuse.
Yeah, I think also you're kind of limiting the inspiration of real science and philosophy, and from a young age they won't be inspired about how amazing the universe is, because it's actually quite a boring story. It's just this bloke who created it in 7 days, doesn't really go into detail, and there's nothing inspiring about science at all, and how the world came about and how people came about.
So I didn't really learn that much about evolution at high school. I learnt sort of about genes and stuff, but they didn't actually specifically state anything to do with evolution, really. It was kind of vague when I was at school. But actually it's like one of the most compelling and interesting fields to study is how life evolved over millions of years, and the story of our planet is like the most and on a grander scale, the story of the cosmos is like the most amazing story ever told, which everyone's life is a part of that story. And it's kind of, you're denying children this sort of amazing wealth of knowledge and understanding. It's just, the idea, they sort of seem to think if you tell a child that the universe wasn't created by a loving God, I mean, you don't have to tell that specifically, if you explain the Big Bang and from stars, how essentially we're formed from molecules created in stars, all that sort of thing.
When you taught that at school, do you remember when you were taught that?
I wasn't taught it at all. It wasn't until watching people like Carl Sagan
Yeah.
that I got a true sort of sense of what science was, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think the way they divide it up into biology, chemistry, physics at school, it's there isn't actually, once you learn about the whole cosmology, you realise that they all fit into the same field. It's kind of biology started off as chemical reactions, and chemistry is bound by the laws of sort of particle physics. So it's all interlinked, but you're sort of taught it as just these are the things you need to learn to pass your exam. If you don't, they just teach you everything you need to know to pass a sort of multiple choice question exam or whatever. It's not actually engaging the children's passion at all. I think that's what you need to do. You need to engage children to become passionate about science, and then they're going to say, when I grow up, I'm going to study science because it's amazing. That's what you need. You need to encourage children that science isn't boring, and it's not just trying to remember the periodic table.
In first school, you had you'd have like more like kind of themed days and things. Like maybe one day you learn about Romans in history, and then maybe you make a Roman shield or something and do a Roman play, or make a spear or something like that. But yes, maybe that could just continue up until high school, where you just have like a theme day where you learn about evolution or something.
Well, no, but evolution is like the theory, unifying theory of biology. You can't really study biology without studying evolution. But we didn't really study evolution at school, so biology was just boring sort of numbers and facts about cells and photosynthesis. When it's put in the context of evolution, it's actually genuinely interesting. But when it's just put there as a fact that you need to learn to get your GCSE, it doesn't engage any interest from the children whatsoever.
It's like in one order, isn't it? You should be knowing everything as a whole, and then kind of slowly breaking down into kind of things, break like evolution, and then break it down to chemistry, and I suppose chemistry comes into many different things. But
I mean, it's convenient because you need someone who knows about chemistry to teach chemistry, someone who knows about physics to teach physics. So they do need different people for sort of different areas of expertise, but it should be, the link between all of them should be understood and taught in all the science classes. So you could still have biology, chemistry, physics, but you should, in each lesson, you should say, well, like you could do a lesson on the chemistry of DNA in chemistry, and say how that links to biology, and and then you could learn more about that in the biology class, and it's sort of they could link them together.
And DNA obviously is also about evolution. There, isn't it? How strands of DNA from past ancestors.
And how it is just like bonds of different chemicals.
Yeah. There's no biblical story called the greatest story ever told. Like Jesus or something, or about creation.
I don't know. It might just be referring to Jesus. I'm not sure.
Because I think natural selection. I think natural selection is probably the greatest story ever told.
Definitely. Well, the story of the cosmos. It's all one process that sort of ended up with intelligent life.
There's popular science writers have tried to sum it up in books like Brief History of Time, Universe in a Nutshell, kind of trying to break everything down. But it'd be good if there's a book which said like maybe just 4 chapters, one about the evolution of time, space, and matter, in its principal functions, and then another one about the evolution of another chapter about the evolution of life, the creation of life, and then another chapter about the creation of civilization, and then another chapter of creation of the internet.
Well, I think you should have to watch Cosmos, Carl Sagan. That should be compulsory viewing at schools. I think you should like this video if you agree with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, greatest story ever told was an epic film made in 1965 about Jesus, apparently.
Yeah.
So it's a reference to Jesus, but it's not the greatest story ever told. Really, it's kind of it's a conglomeration of different ideas.
As in what he twists on, you know.
No, well, the twist is he comes back. I suppose that's like
with
you could have one episode where he's crucified, and then the next episode is like they see the empty tomb. It's like dun dun dun.
Had you gone around telling everyone that was going to happen?
I think I'm not sure where the myth of the resurrection came from, but I think what it was that they thought Jesus was the Messiah, and he died, and they were kind of like, fuck, he's dead. We need some sort of story to make it still relevant, so they say he was raised from the dead, and that's happened in like the Emperor Haile Selassie, who's like the god of the Rastafarian movement. He died, and there's still Rastafarians that believe he's still alive. So it's kind of those kind of myths do happen.
Yeah.
And I think it was something like that. Jesus died, and people couldn't handle the fact he died, so they made up a story that he actually came back. So, yeah. But yeah, getting back to the education topic, I think also critical thinking skills are a cornerstone of sort of being well educated. I think it deserves a sort of special subject, additional to maths and the sciences and English. Should have separate critical thinking, because it's certainly important. And it's not just, I mean, it is an argument against religion, but it's also an argument against, critical thinking. If you get a spam email from someone who's in Nigeria saying, if you give us your bank details, you've won £1 million, well, if you don't analyse that in a critical way, you're going to get yourself in a lot of shit. So it's not just about religion, it's kind of protecting people from various scams and stuff.
It's a practical life skill, isn't it? As well as a kind of an employee's skills important. It's important for like your career and your life. Yes, it's very valuable. And even the we were talking about before about having things in like subjects that don't fall specifically into any class, like evolution. Like it's it's a huge subject which is probably touched upon in
it's basically the story of who we are, so it influences everything. Everything about humanity is influenced by our evolution. Yeah. So history, everything. So it's a massive subject, really. And that's just human evolution. But yeah, it's something that children need to understand, because it is demonstrably true, it's proven fact, and if the parents that don't like it, or if the child wants to grow up to disregard evolution and say actually the world was created in 6 days, that's fair game, do what you want, but to teach it from an early age is just brainwashing, that's all it is. So yeah, I think revolution in the study of science and sort of, as Dawkins mentions in the God Delusion, sort of raising consciousness in the level of education, so people are actually inspired by science, and it's something that kids are genuinely interested in, and also teaching them critical thinking. That's a sort of summary of what, at least I think, would benefit society in terms of education.